Hello and welcome back to Kim's Cozy Corner. I'm Kim and I am just doing some chores around the garden as I continue to get my garden in shape for the season. So I figured I'd just bring you with me as I continue to weed and plant some of the first vegetables into the garden. I am pulling more weeds, even though I've weeded this bed here. And I'll be doing some other chores around the garden as well. I've gotten quite a bit done so far, which is one of the reasons why I'm late on my weekly update. So I will make sure I get that done here too in the next little bit. But I am in the process now of planting more rounds of onion. So I've already planted a lot of onion. I just finished planting some leeks, so I have leeks in the ground too now. I am going to plant up the rest of my red onion that I have here in the same bed that I already have onion. And in this bed, I'm going to have tomatoes on this trellis here, but the tomatoes are going to be back just a little bit. And so I think I could put one row, and I'm always overplanting. I always put stuff so close together. It helps from a weeding standpoint, but sometimes I get so close that it affects overall production. But hopefully that will not be the case this year, as I've done such a better job of organizing what needs to get done, the spacing, adding more space for tomatoes, because that's what I'm always trying to fit in, is more tomatoes. I love tomatoes and I'm always squeezing in tomatoes. But this year I did much better on my onion seedlings, even though we had a slow start and I had to purchase new seeds. But I ended up with a pretty good batch of seedlings with a variety of onion. So I am working on red burgundy. Red burgundy is a red onions. There we go. Red onions typically don't store very well. If I get a good red onion harvest, and the ones that I put in 2 or 3 weeks ago are really doing well, but if I get a good harvest, I will go ahead and chop these up and freeze them so that they'll last longer. If I try to do the red onions just on the shelf in a cool place, they're usually the first ones to start coming up on me. So we will take care of these red onion if they're really red, because my labels got mixed up. So I'm not 100% sure these are red onion, but I'm going to assume that that's what they are. And I'm just going to add a few along the edge of my bed here, out of the way of the tomato plants that'll be going in. But it'll be plenty of room for them to spread their legs, as I like to say. I mentioned before, I really don't care for red onions. I mean, I'll cook with them. I don't mind cooking with them. I don't like them in my salads or for fresh eating. My mother does. For those who are new here, my mother lives with me. I take care of my mother, my sister, 2 young daughters, and then I have an adult daughter who visits quite often. I make sure I have enough food for them as well. So I try to plant things that I know everyone else will like, so I don't plant just for myself. If I don't plant red onions, then I know my mother will go to the store and purchase red onions. And that's what we're trying to do, is stay out of the grocery store. By me planting the red onions, she's happy, I'm happy, because we're saving money and not going to the grocery store. So it's a win-win for everybody. And as far as cooking, I don't mind cooking with them at all. So if I need to saute onions, I'll saute whatever onion I have. Yeah, the rest of these don't look too good. I think the rest of these have just been sitting out too long. They're not happy anymore. These are called Globo onion. They're supposed to be huge, like bigger than a softball. And I'm always trying to grow a big onion. Don't know about the taste of these. They're probably going to be very strong versus sweet. I don't remember what the package said, but I didn't buy it for the flavor. I bought it for the sheer size that they're supposed to get. So I have some Globo planted over in another bed, but I'm adding a few to this bed here. Just want to go ahead and finish working through this supply of onion and call my onion planting days over. And I have onion in my garden. I have onion in my neighbor's garden. I've been kind of squeezing onion in any and everywhere I can put it. If these global onions get as large as they say they do, they're probably going to be touching the side of my bed. You know, you can always pick an onion early. I have never grown an onion that large. I was watching Lazy Dog Farm this morning, and he was talking about his onion, and he's down in, I think, South Georgia somewhere, I believe is where he lives. Boy, he has some huge onion, and they weren't ready to be picked yet, but he pulled some for supper or for dinner. They're still in the ground, and which means they're still getting bigger and bigger, which I thought was pretty cool. So I'm still working on onions. I have 2 containers left of onion, and these are yellow sweet Spanish onion, and I already have some throughout the garden, but I'm going to plant a few more on the tips of this bed here, and I'm pulling more weeds. I really like my yellow sweet onions. They're sweet, they're yummy, and they don't have that sting and that burn, that strong onion flavor. The last few videos I've been kind of joking about how much soil costs. I want to make sure everyone knows that I'm all about saving money. I don't buy my soil 1 bag at a time. If I'm in a pinch, I'll buy 1 bag. But I'm typically buying it in bundles, in bales. I've bought a half a pallet before of soil when I need to buy soil. But I usually just continue to reuse my soil. And then I amend my beds each year with compost or what else will I put in there? Worm castings, that kind of stuff, to continue to improve the quality of my beds. And so I have containers of potatoes and a few other vegetables. And at the end of the season, I take the soil from the containers to top off any bed that may need soil in it. Anything that I don't use to top off my beds, I put them in a container. It's actually an airtight container, so that I can put that same soil back into my containers the next year with, of course, amending it with fertilizers, worm castings, you know, compost, that kind of stuff. But I typically buy now that I'm not adding beds or anything like that. There are no new GreenStalks going in. I have all the GreenStalks for now that I plan to put in my garden. No new containers that aren't already accounted for. And I'm not adding beds. So the amount of soil that I'm buying, honestly, it's not that much. Less than 10 bags a year, probably. Unless I add additional pots or beds or find another place to squeeze a few plants in. So that's why I try to get my Pro Mix from my nursery, who has pallets and pallets and pallets of it. And so I can buy it from them, a half pallet at a time, all the way down to a bale at a time if need be. But I've been joking because I needed 1 bag of soil a few weeks ago. I went into Home Depot and it cost, like for real, it was $19 and some change for 1 bag. Now I'm hoping, now that we're in the garden season, that they've lowered that price. I just thought that was like absolutely ridiculous. And I did see, so if you're a Walmart or a Sam's Club member, every now and then they'll have those special buys. And they have a special buy going right now where you can get a 55 quart? The big bags of the Miracle Grow moisture control. Instead of paying $20 at the box store, I think Sam's Club has them on sale right now for $12 a bag, which is a huge difference. If you need a lot of soil, then I do recommend you get compost. If you have a way to get that, I tried to get compost years ago. I bought 5 yards of compost. I put it in my garden, and all I did that whole season was fight weeds. So I chose, obviously, the wrong supplier. I went to get compost from another supplier, and I asked if they knew if it was herbicides or anything like that had been, the soil contained any of it. They could not guarantee that there was no herbicides in it. And so that was a no-go for me. After that first bad experience I had, I'm like, I'm not doing that. And so over the years, I have just been amending my beds by adding a little bit here, a little bit there of potting soil until I've gotten to this point right here where I need very few bags every year, unless I decide to add a bed or a few more pots. I'm not perfect, but I'm willing to pay the money for a few bags here or there versus going through what I did. I mean, I messed my whole garden up. There were so many wild onions and wild carrots and just weeds just growing in my beds. And I don't like weeds in my bed. I don't like weeds. I'm constantly trying to get my weeds out. That's not an option for me. But I will keep trying to source some better compost. I can't buy it by the bag, you know, long term if I need it large quantities. I will not. If they can't tell me it's herbicide free, I won't buy it. I'm afraid I'm going to get another batch of very bad soil. And I was told, oh, this is black gold. This is the best compost it is. This is what everybody's getting. I guess I'm just not everybody because I don't want it. Anyway, I just wanted to share with everyone that I'm not really buying my soil at $20 a bag. Will I buy a bag if I absolutely had to in a pinch? I would, one bag. But I am not going to buy bags and bags and bags of that. And I don't advise anyone to do that. Not just to get a particular name brand, it's not worth it. Let's work on a different project. I tell you what, I've been working on onions so long, I feel like that's all I know how to do is plant onion. Let's go work on something else. All right, we are planting even more cool weather crops. Here's another home that I have set aside for some cool weather crops. That's got some weeds in it. This bed was new to me last year, but I put it in place at the end of the season back in 2021. Last year I had flowers, cucumbers, and squash, and green beans in this space. The green beans just kept giving and kept giving and kept giving. I was just like, wow, I didn't expect the green beans to do that well. And I don't know if you would say this is a no-dig bed or not, but I don't disturb, you know, down 6 inches and 12 inches and that kind of stuff. I just move the soil right on the top to get rid of any shallow root weeds, and that's it. Since it's potting soil, it doesn't compact into tiny little, or compact down to a point where the roots won't spread, so that's a good thing. And I believe last year into this bed, I dumped some of my container soil. So we're continuing to build it up. To prepare this bed though, I did remove all of the grass. Back in 2021, completely removed it all the way down to just the dirt. And then I put cardboard down and then leaf mulch, some twigs, and just a little bit of soil. And then last year I added more soil or potting mix to it. So this year, I'm just gonna add a little bit of worm casting. If I can get my bag to work with me here. Some of my slow release, all-purpose fertilizer. And I just take a handful or so. Spread it out. I use the square foot garden method in most of my raised beds. So here's a picture of the book that I read and that I follow, and there's many different versions of this book out there. The square foot garden basically tells you how many plants, depending on the type of plant and the size of the plant, that you can put into each square foot space. And so that's generally what I follow for my raised bed. I don't follow it perfectly, but it kind of gives me an idea about plant spacing. By following the square foot garden method, I can plant larger plants, one plant per square foot, and there's just enough room for the plants to grow and spread, but not too much room to give room for weeds to come up in between the plants, so it keeps the weeds down. But I still like to mulch, even though the plants are kind of spaced close together, but I still prefer to mulch. In your square foot garden, you're supposed to have a square foot. I got a triangle here, but I'm still going to think about it in the same method. So there will be 4 plants from the beginning of this bed down to the corner here. And then the next row back, I'm going to put 3 plants, but I'm going to think about it 1 plant per square foot. And in this space, I'm planting Brussels sprouts and more cabbage. Brussels sprouts is kind of iffy in my zone. I grew them last year. They didn't do really well, and I gifted some of my Brussels sprouts to a coworker, and they got Brussels sprouts for days, and so it did really well for them. Brussels sprouts like cool weather. They can't stand that super hot summer heat, so I'm planting it down on the garden that doesn't have that strong sun hitting it in the afternoon in the late day. I am going to plant 2 Brussels sprouts because they can get really big. So I'm going to plant them toward the back, so as they start falling over, I can angle them toward the flowers versus the other vegetables. And I am adding cabbage. So I will be adding red acre cabbage to this bed here. And I brought my mycos. I like to put mycos on all of my transplants. So I just sprinkle a little bit into the hole that I'm going to plant in, and the plants are going to be planted to the same depth that they were currently in their little cells there. And I'm also going to plant another, I call it like a cone-shaped cabbage, and I can't pronounce it. Chateau Renard cabbage. Is very similar to the early Jersey cabbage. It has a comb-shaped head. If I have a picture, I'll put it up here. This is new to me this year, but I thought it would be cool to try something different. So I'm going to do some vegetable art here. I'm going to do 1 red, 1 green, 1 red, 1 green into this space. Now I'm planting cabbage, but eventually I'm going to have to step over and into this space here to get those flowers right in the center. And so I got to figure out how to reach and do that later without stepping in the bed, or just step in the bed and deal with it. It's a one-time step in the bed. I guess I can make it happen. I try my best not to step in my beds. Well, this little red darling was not very happy in its last home, so hopefully it'll be happy in its new home. Well, the weather's changing on me. I've gone from a sunny sky, warm weather, to a cold breeze, to now clouds over me. It looks like rain is in store, but I'm going to keep right on moving. If I end abruptly, it's because the rain came. But I do know it's getting colder. Well, it looks like the rain's coming, so I'm going to shut down for a little while and come back.